Welcome, baseball fans, to State of MLB's Playoff Edition. Here's our bracket of all of our finalized field. Having St. Louis won, they closed out Milwaukee into the wild card game. They're heading to Washington. And let's go ahead and get into it here. Are my predictions for each of the series. And feel free to leave your comment section below about if you would agree with me, disagree with me. I would love to hear all your thoughts and comments on that. And if you just happen to find this video through YouTube, please hit like and subscribe. It definitely helps the channel out. So let's go ahead and get into this. As I look at the entire field here, the single most difficult one here to pick, in my opinion, is the very first one we're going to do, the American League wild card game. Basically, the reason why is because you have very definitive strengths and weaknesses of each of these teams, and based upon the matchups here, as subjective as it might be and as argumentative as it might be, there are teams with which I feel have a distinct advantage in those series. Now, I could be wrong, and that's fine. I'd be happy to give kudos to the teams that break my bracket, no problem. This is all in good fun. So the thing here with Tampa is the fact that they are a stronger road team, and I've been saying since the power rankings that they want to be on the road for the postseason. They don't want that home game. Despite some successes they've had at home, they want to be on the road. At the same time, Oakland has not exactly been a slouch getting into the postseason here. With their rotation, they have very, very strong rotation. Their lineup is clicking on all cylinders at just the right time. The advantage to Tampa is the fact that they have been playing the opener card all season long. Their bullpen is used to coming in spot relief in random innings and doing whatever it takes to get innings. They're also very good at getting those walk-offs and extra inning wins. Hence, they were in the top 10, I believe number 6 in the power rankings end of the season. Having said that, the rotation for Oakland is stronger overall. I mean, you're having pitched Snell Sunday in Tampa means that realistically their only chance of winning the game is to put Charlie Morton in for the wild card game against Oakland. And then you're relying on relievers that sometimes have been locked down, sometimes have been suspect. Do you really want to put that all on the line in a wild card game? Whereas Oakland, they're more inclined to stick with the starter longer because they have so much more depth in their rotation. So, historically speaking, this kind of favors Tampa a little bit, but again, this is a brand new season here. I was really, really leaning towards giving this one to Tampa. However, I think that you have much more depth in Oakland. So let's go ahead and give this one to Oakland. Okay. Coming into the National League wild card here, yes, the Brewers have been on fire coming into this season. But you've got Max Scherzer, and you've got, who's another starter I think is really, really strong? Drawing a blank, I apologize, but with their pitching depth there, and you got a whole bunch of non-brand name players in Milwaukee willing them to win here, and could they absolutely upset Washington? No question about it. But when you have the kind of starters that Washington can throw at this game, the same thing as you have in LA, in Houston, in Minnesota, I have to give it to Washington on the division series here. I just think they have too much depth, and I would be surprised if they didn't have Scherzer start that game. He's on fire. He's going to be lights out. And even if they yank him early, they have another Cy Young candidate who I'm drawing a blank on right now. It'll come to me like when I get halfway through, I'm sure. So I'm going to give Washington the win here, Oakland the win here. Now, that brings us to Thursday and Friday with our division series. So, kicking things off, I'm going to go with either way, and this is why I was kind of torn on the wild card series here. I really lean towards giving Tampa the win here. But even if Oakland or Tampa win, either way, going into Houston, when you've got the Verlanders, you've got the Garrett Cole, the Zach Greinke, in a short series, neither team has enough firepower. This is just going to be an outright a give me to Houston. I'm sorry, Oakland fans and Tampa fans. Too much firepower, too much to go up against. And going into the LA Washington series, yes, Kershaw has been very, very suspect, but you've got so much depth behind him in Ryu and the others that after you're using your Cy Young caliber pitcher in Washington, okay, let's say you take game one because Kershaw lays an egg and your second starter, I still can't remember his freaking name, dominates game one. Great. What do you got after that? You now burn your two best pitchers in Washington, and they're only just getting warmed up, baby. I got to give this to the LA Dodgers. They're just too deep. Too much power, realistically speaking, honestly. Would I love to see Washington put on a fight and really make it a match? Sure. But ultimately, I see this is going to be in 4 games. I really do. And I'm going to go and I'm going to give this one in 4 games as well. The reason being is because I think that anybody's suspect to a bad game, and anything can happen in any given game. I'm going to give both the wild card teams the one win in that series. It's going to be 3-1 in favor of Houston and LA. Now, coming down to much more balanced division series. New York versus Minnesota and Atlanta versus St. Louis here. St. Louis just got into the clinch the division today. Meanwhile, Atlanta has been holding the charge down all year long. Their rookies and their veterans are clicking on all cylinders. They're not quite the Schmaltz-Glavin tandem, I forget the third pitcher there, of the 90s. But you've got a lot of firepower in Atlanta, and their lineup is no slouch either. I'm going to get to that in just a moment. But coming into a much more dynamic and much more evenly matched series. Of the entire division series, I think this is the most evenly matched series of all 4 division series here. Between Burrows, Pineda, Odorizzi, with your closer and Rogers, you have a lot of very dangerous lineup and a very formidable rotation, especially considering New York's rotation has been highly suspect. Now, I say that because against Texas and Tampa, after they already got the division, they had a very, very poor showing all week. However, I take you back to the fact that they went into LA and took 2 out of 3. They stepped up where it mattered, and they got the job done. And when you look at the season series in New York and in Minnesota, New York took 2 out of 3 of both of those. So, I am definitely going to put this at a 5-game set. No question about it. This one I'm going to put at a 4-game set. Because even though these are much more balanced in here, I just think that Atlanta's going to have probably too much to deal with over St. Louis. St. Louis is going to have too much to deal with Atlanta. In this set here, definitely 5 games. They're way too evenly matched. However, having said that, given the fact that during regular season and postseason over the past couple of decades, the New York has traditionally had Minnesota's number, and while on paper and in analyst reports that this could be the year that they break that curve, I have to see it before I believe it, and I have to give this one to the New York Yankees. I really do. I think that is entirely possible, and I'm totally on board with you. The fact that Minnesota could have a change of a star this year, given their dangerous lineup and their formidable rotation. However, this year it's been in regular season play, outside of the slugfest in Target Field. I haven't seen the evidence, postseason or regular season, that has proven that the Minnesota can get over the hump there of New York. So I'm going to give that to New York there. And here, as I've already been kind of hinting around with it, I'm going to give this one to Atlanta. Not that St. Louis can't win this. I've seen a lot more consistency, a lot more firepower in Atlanta over the course of the season that I've seen out of St. Louis. And it doesn't help the fact that their season series, I believe, went in favor of Atlanta. I have to double check that. Either way, season series aside, I'm giving this one to Atlanta. So that puts you in the ALCS here, and I'm going to, in this case here, I don't think Atlanta's gotten far enough yet as far as the development of the team. They had a phenomenal year, but I'll get into that. This one here is what, I gotta say, they've got a lot more depth in Houston at the end of the season, especially with Severino being, he had a good couple of first start coming back from the IL, but his final tune-up was a disaster. That aside, they lost Domingo Germán, who was their rock, and outside of the rotation, you've got the big maple, what's his name, Paxton and Tanaka there. Solid pitchers, but can two solid pitchers do enough damage to overcome a very formidable rotation between your Verlander, your Cole, your Greinke, and the rest of the rotation, along with their deep lineup? They took 4 out of 7 games from New York during regular season, giving them home field advantage for the ALCS. And as much as I would personally love to give this to New York, I see a repeat of the previous ALCS, and I really see this as going to be a Houston takeover in 7 games. Sorry, my penmanship is terrible. And I haven't even wiped that off with right now. So, you see the 7 games here. It's going to be a 7-game series again, and it's going to be Houston. Here, this is going to be a 6-game series here, and I give this to the LA Dodgers. I really do. They've got a lot more depth and a lot more firepower. And even with Kershaw as a handicap, because he hasn't proven himself that he can win the postseason, they've got so much more behind him. So now we have between the LA Dodgers and the Houston Astros. And this is going to piss off all of my Houston fans. But just because you have on paper and you finish the regular season with a better record, does not guarantee you the World Series. You're starting in Houston, but I think this year that the LA Dodgers will turn the table on you, and they will finally break their curve. They'll get there for the 3rd straight year, and this time they'll actually capitalize on that. This is just my gut opinion on this stuff. If I were taking a look at the analytics, I would say that Houston is absolutely the deepest team going into the postseason. There's no question about it. And if I were looking at just numbers, not performance, not managerial things, not random things that happen on the field, just straight numbers, I would say that Houston on paper looks like the bar none favorite to win the World Series. No question about it. However, if you've been watching all the teams all year long, there's a lot of intangibles that go into every given series. And I think push come to shove, the battle-hardened Dodgers are ready to take their revenge and capture their first World Series in many, many years. So let me know what you think about what I think, and I will be happy to provide updates throughout the postseason as to how things turned out. I do see this one being the most difficult one to call, but I'm giving the edge to Oakland, and this one, there's too much firepower in Washington. And either way, neither one is going to survive the divisional round. Houston and LA are just too deep, too stacked, and they've been top 3s, top 5s all year long. these could very well be upsets for me, no question about it. These could completely bust my bracket and give Houston and LA a much more significant challenge than I'm giving credit for. But this is where I have it. I'm going to go ahead and just cross that out here because that looks horrible and it's driving me crazy. 7 games here, 6 games there, and then LA takes this in 6 games is my call here. Let me know what you think about what I think. If you just happen to come across this video through YouTube or Google, please hit like and subscribe. Greatly appreciates it. I love to hear all of your feedback in the comment section below. And enjoy the games, with Tuesday and Wednesday being the wildcard games, and then Thursday and Friday being the kickoff of the division series. You'll see me here back next weekend to report on how the wildcard games went, how the division series are progressing, and give you my thoughts and opinion on that so far. So until then, have a great night, enjoy the work week, and let's go baseball!